Founded in 1999 by Jason Burks, Retrospec Films is Oklahoma's largest turnkey production company of its kind. With over 2 decades of experience, a full-time team of over 20 talented individuals, a 12,000 square foot studio to create in, and thousands of successfully completed projects in both entertainment and advertising. You're in the right place if you like hearing some good old filmmaking stories. On this podcast, we will discuss the pursuit of creating things and the problems we solve by digging up projects from across the last 20 years and giving you a glimpse behind the scenes where the magic happens. You're listening to Retrospec Films from the Archives.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us on Retrospect from the Archives. I am Jason. I am joined here by Jacob Hightower and Jessica Hightower. It's like a little family
get together.
Podcast, little get together.
I'm not mad about it.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I'm sitting in between you guys, but you can hear.
Okay.
You don't right now. You don't exist, man. It's just me and her.
Just you and her. I wish that we had a bowl of spaghetti right here, and you guys
one single,
like one noodle in between
Lady
the two
in
of
the
you,
tram.
and I'll just be like back here, like, oh. Well,
This is awkward.
yeah, this is awkward. No, so anyways, back to my canned intro. Retrospect Films from the Archives, our podcast where we talk about problems we've solved, things we've created, the way we've done it, and we're usually doing this by digging up old projects and dissecting them. So this has been really fun. We're like, I don't even know how many episodes in we are, but it's definitely like coming in on 24 maybe, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Today, we are in our second podcast about White Invitation. So you may have watched an earlier one about this. White Invitation is a film that we just finished, and we are about 99.6% done at this point. So I think I have one last edit session to tweak some things, and we'll send it to sound and start submitting to film festivals. But on the last episode, if you didn't watch it, you should. But we talked about the creative development. The creative development on this project was very extensive. For us, funding a film is quite an endeavor because you're just burning cash, and you better be burning cash for a reason. For us, it's to sharpen our own skills, but also to put this thing in some festivals and hopefully win some things. And, I believe that every good video starts with a great script. It has to. Most of the problems can be solved on paper before you get on set. And so we were, after developing this, coming up with all the creative, all that jazz, it gets time for production. So on this one, Jessica actually, and it was kind of, I wouldn't say like last minute, but a little bit it was like,
Yeah.
Brandon's busy.
Yes.
He's working on a lot of projects that we're doing right now for clients.
Right.
And it just was like, Jessica, and you've been emerging over the last year and a half producing, which has been incredible. And worth noting. I don't know if it was me. Maybe it was. Maybe I was like, hey, Jess.
Yeah.
Or was it Brandon?
It was also Taylor, too. She put a script on my desk, and she said, there was a note on this, and it said, please produce this. And so I found it on a Monday, and I was like, okay, I got you. And then after that, you were like, yes, just step in and get it done.
You can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Let's why don't we talk a little bit about the producing first, and then we can dig into some of the camera and all of the gear and the execution and all that stuff, and chime you in, Jacob. But so Jess, why don't you talk to me a little bit about, I don't know, the uniqueness of producing a short film and how that's different, maybe dynamics with myself or with Taylor or anybody that's involved in it. Talk a little bit about producing White Invitation.
There were a few different locations that were very odd, very different. So we needed an apartment that wasn't the best looking apartment, but in Tulsa, there's a lot of great apartments, or there's apartments that you can't film in. So it was really a struggle to find a shack-looking apartment type, kind of rundown, because the character is down on her luck. So I had a contact with a shoot that we had done before, and she was like, well, we have a shack in the back of our Airbnb. And I was like, can I take a look at it? So Taylor and I went over there to look at it, and Taylor was like, this is perfect. And just seeing like the art direction that Maddie did later, it made it even better. But then we had scenes that were a doctor's office, and we needed to go to City Hall, and I had to try to get that done in like a week, which thank you, Roger. Sorry. that was fun. But then we also had to film at Tulsa Tech too, which make it look like a nursing home. There were a lot of different locations that we had to lock down. And I think I had like 3 weeks to try to lock them down and get everything done. But also casting was a big, big thing with the pre-production of this. So I was the mom in it, so I was acting and producing, and then he was the dad in this film. But we also had 2 little kids that were our children. And that was a struggle to find someone that had the innocence of the character Allie, but also could look like Taylor and look like as if she was younger, her younger self. And then we had to find a younger brother for her that was cute, that kind of looked like us, that could be like this in the pond, and because it's a thriller. You don't know what's going to happen. So we had to have those kids act a lot, but I don't know. We were expecting a lot from them, so it was a lot to produce. I mean, and just the crew alone, like making sure that we were taken care of every day. And it was my first time to be AD, assistant director too.
How would you compare it? Because I'll probably do the same after you, but I feel like there's just something very different about, like, there's this weird thing. Like, I feel like when you're getting paid to produce something, you are trying to make that person happy. But when there is no client, you feel like what you're creating is kind of like for the sake of the company that you care about.
Yes.
And it's a different type of pressure. But talk to me about that.
It's a different type of pressure for sure. We are producing it for ourselves, but we're putting it out there for the world. So it's not just a client is giving us creative. I mean, we had the creative development department, so whenever I needed to make a decision, I would check with Taylor and Devin. They wrote the script, and then I would check with you. And so there was a lot of back and forth on like, what was really perfect for this. And I think that put a lot of pressure on it because we wanted to make it the best it could be. Not just, and we do that for our clients, but I think there was an added pressure of just make it perfect because we're not going to shoot this again. Like this is our one time, especially like some of the scenes, like we had that day to do it. Like City Hall, we weren't going back. We had to make it perfect. And we did a really good job at that. And we only had 5 days to shoot.
I think it was like 4 days. Then it was like 5 days. And it was like 6 days. And it was like 6.5 days.
Yes.
7 days.
But to shoot all of that. So I created a schedule and we had to stay on that schedule. And that was another special act that we had to do because you want to get everything. You want to make sure you get everything. And I'm over there with the clipboard like, Jason, it's time to go. We have to go. But it's that added pressure of you just want to make sure you get everything, you have enough time, and you make it perfect.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Jacob, I'd like to get some of your feelings. I think at first I was thinking about camera, but really I think it's almost more interesting talking about your role in the acting side of it because, and I will say not to I think we had a lot of great acting in this piece, but your scene is just so strong. Like you killed it. I think everyone was a little scared of you while we were filming it.
Jack was just excited for you to take him fishing.
Susan, I ain't got time for this today. Huh?
You promised.
I didn't promise you shit! Okay? If he wants to go fishing, you take him fishing! I'm not!
Which was great. Like I love that scene. Like when I watched that scene, in fact, the last edit session I sat in, I was like, no, do not clip that shot off. Like drag that shot out. I want to stay on him. I want to see him breathing. I want to see his emotion. I want to hold that out. But talk to me just a little bit about that. I know acting has been something you've been doing for a long time. You take it serious.
Yeah.
So yeah, just give me your feelings on that character even before this project started and then through the shooting.
Yeah. When I first heard about this project coming up, I was just in the back of my head, I'm like, oh, come on, I hope I get a role. I hope I get a role. I mean, I it's not one of those things to where it's like, I expect the role given to me. I will earn the role, whatever it is, I'm gonna go the extra steps and, prove that, I'm the man for the job. So after we established that I was going to play the father, Bill, I kind of, we did that little test run in the upstairs room. You and Taylor it was kind of a little audition, honestly.
That was a casting call.
Yeah, it was a casting call. So, I mean, I had to jump through, all those hoops that you had to go through. And, when it first started, so I guess rewinding to when we first started the project, I actually, I decided most of the time I'm first AC. I'm constantly building camera. I'm constantly getting all that stuff ready for the shoot. And what I decided to do to not sacrifice for my role is I tagged Mark in, and I truly appreciate Mark stepping in and being the guy for that job. But he was first AC, and I put all of that weight on him to get everything built for you and ready to go. I might have helped him just a little bit, but most of all, I wanted to step back and do some art directing with Maddie, which she did all the art directing. I did heavy lifting. That's pretty much what I did. Building and heavy lifting. She's amazing at what she does. And so I decided to go art director first to separate myself from the shoot a little bit, because I knew I had to step into this role and I wanted to be fresh. I wanted to have just a fresh mind going into it. And then we did the day of shooting with my character, and I will admit I went a little method. I did. I think I went pretty far into where we were actually having an external argument, but it was because of our two characters. I wouldn't get out of character, and I don't think she would either. And so we were butting heads that day. We don't ever butt heads.
No,
and
it was a little confusing for me.
Yeah. So I was being a jerk. I really was. I was standoffish. I was being really quiet. And those are just some of the things and I was doing that to intimidate the kids as well. A little bit of, I don't want to come over there and be buddy with them when they have to be scared of me.
Right.
And so there was a lot of, I was kind of being authoritative to them. And the little kid, I just kept hey, we're going to straighten up here. All right. And he would be like, yes. And I was like, it's working. So, I take a lot of pride in roles that I would get, and I just try to give everything I have in that moment in time, because that's all we can do, that's just what we got. So
talk to me. One thing that I thought you did a really good job at, which I think you sort of embodied what was in my imagination, but I still struggled to define it, was this kind of belligerent, withheld, not overdosed, but drugged up a bit voice.
Yeah.
And that's something, it's fun. I don't know if you've watched your scene. It's in its final form now.
Okay.
But it's to me, it's exactly I was trying to get this out of control, temperamental asshole, for lack of better terms, but yet I wanted you to feel trapped in your ability to speak because you had been drinking too much.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that, because I do feel like we spent not a ton of time, but a little bit of time on it. But by the time we got to filming, you had it nailed.
Yeah. So that portion of it was a little tough for me, because, I come from a really good upbringing. My parents are divorced now, but they were together the whole time until I was, in my late 20s. So that my childhood, my upbringing, I didn't really have a place to go to for abuse or, I had a really good upbringing. So I had to find different places. And so what I did is I just kind of analyzed what's going on in this guy's head. Why does he feel this way? And a lot of it stems back to the way his father treated him. And I just kind of tried to, embody that to where it's very much, what do you call that? Generational. The reason we're making this film is about the girl's trauma. But lo and behold, it's because of the dad's trauma that she has trauma. So I tried to find it from a place of that, trying to look back and go, well, I had a hard upbringing. And, I tried to find that place. And I'm glad I was able to, somewhat find it. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I like I said, I just try to give everything I can at that moment in time for the role that I would be playing.
Tell me a little bit about the pond scene. I mean, that was a whole nother endeavor of, throwing a 4 or 5-year-old into a pond, and we actually did that.
Yeah, that was probably the most challenging shot in my head as far as like the acting side of it. I remember coming up and I'm like, hey, if we can make sure these kids hit their marks, and we were like, let's just, let's pump the brakes there a little bit, so I had to indulge in like acting to air almost. So there was a part of me that I just had to react to like nothing was happening. They were just looking at me, and I'm like, so I have to keep throwing my lines and stuff. And then, the kid, he thought it was going to be fun to go into the pond. He kept looking over. When are we going into the pond?
He was so excited.
And I kept kneeling next to him, and I'm like, buddy, it's not going to be fun. I want you to know that.
Because it was the end of March. So like the water was cold.
It was still cold. I mean, you were neck deep in it.
I was in it.
You were shivering.
Right.
And I'm just thinking to myself, we got one shot at this.
Yep.
And sure enough, we had one shot at it.
One shot.
So I knew that in that moment, if I didn't hear cut, I'm going full on 100%. I'm like, there's no holding back. I'm throwing this kid in the pond.
Yeah.
And it just worked out. I think that scene worked out perfect because even though some of their reactions weren't there, the camera was in an angle that you don't have to see their reactions.
Yeah.
You see me reacting to them.
Right.
And when I didn't hear cut and we were in that scene, I just picked him up and I probably chunked him about 6 feet out into the water. And again, not hearing cut, I just continued to play through the role or to play through the scene. And then I remember I stumbled back and I fell backwards because I was supposed to see him in the water.
Yeah.
And I fell backwards and I don't know. I didn't look what was behind me, but I fell in a big mud pile and it looked real because it was real. I woke up the next morning going, what happened to me?
Yeah.
But that scene was awesome. I live for those kinds of moments when acting because it feels so real. Yeah. And I think that's how you really pull it off is it's got to feel real. It's got to be real.
Yeah, that little scene, I think some of my favorite scenes are ones that you were in, but when we had little Aspen in the truck crying and looking at you, and oh my gosh, I mean, props to that little girl.
Yes.
She did amazing.
I mean, just unbelievable.
Like,
That's just...
and looking like Taylor at a young age.
Right.
Like, again, casting was fantastic on that.
Could not have asked for a better cast. I mean, when she came in, I was like, she looks like a little Taylor. That's great.
Yes.
But I wonder if she can be good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she listened, and when I auditioned with her, I think you were in there with me. Yeah. And I was like, we juggled because we had a lot of good little girl actors little actresses come in. But I was just like, you're dealing with this fine thing where it's like the audience, if the little girl doesn't look anything like Taylor, it doesn't even matter how good they're acting because the audience isn't listening because they're like, who is that? You know what I mean?
Yep.
But we kind of got the best of both worlds. But, well, that's awesome. I'd summarize some of my thoughts on the production, then we'll wrap up this episode on this. Obviously this was a project I was directing, and, I will say that it's I don't have a ton of narrative experience. I mean, I've probably directed, 6, 7 short films, probably 1,500 commercials, which is a lot of commercials. It's a lot of actors, and I've had cameras in my hands my whole life. But it's different when you're telling a story that, it's storytelling to capture authentic emotion that people see and connect with because it resonates with something that they experience in their life. Mm-hmm. If it's not done right, then it just straight up doesn't work. And we all know films where it just feels off or where it doesn't feel right. And for me, also funding this film, I'm going, I want this to be great. I think everything I do, I'm asking myself, am I paving the way for the next 5 years of where this company goes? And I think we'd all love to do some film, more things in that storytelling space. And so you can't pave the way for the next big project if you don't do a great job on the current project. Mm-hmm. And so, this was a very in-depth undertaking. For me, being a perfectionist is a part of who I am, but beyond that, I can't always assume that my perfectionism is even on par with what the story needs, because maybe I don't know. And so I was digging very deep in every single scene on how it would be shot, what reactions would be seen, how the deliver would be delivered. Did I get all the little pieces to tell the story right? We shot a lot of it handheld. I was shooting it myself. That for me has always kind of helped me connect, because I know if the take is there, and if it's a hard script and I need to feel it as it occurs so I can direct it properly, like having that camera in my hands is a way that I do that. It's actually very hard for me sometimes to be on a monitor, because I don't feel as connected, which is weird and annoying because cameras are heavy, and I hope someday I can sit on a monitor, but I'm just not that director. I'm like the guy who's always also shooting it. But overall, this project, man, the production side, which is what we've been summarizing, just couldn't be happier. Just couldn't be. I think Jessica did an absolutely incredible job. The producing was incredible. The talent that we hired was so good. The locations were outstanding. I felt really excited about the lighting. We did a lot of really weird, unique things with the lighting that made it, come together in a cool way. Yeah. And, now we're in the editing and we're getting close to completion. But I think this is something that all of us can be really, really super proud of, I would say.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to the whole team, because everybody here at Retro had a hand on this at some point, sometime. Yeah. We're all passionate. We all have each other's backs, and without that, we wouldn't have something like this. So I just wanted to give a shout out to our whole team there. So.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, we probably had at some point, at any point, almost 70-80% of the people that work here.
Yes.
We're on set doing something. Yep. And, I've heard people say, I'm probably going to get it all wrong, but they say, like, to be a writer, you need a typewriter or a pencil. And then they say, like, to be an artist, you need a paintbrush. To be a filmmaker, you need an army.
Yeah.
And it's true. And it's interesting because people will parallel those things. They're like, oh yeah, like he's a writer, or he's an artist, or he's a musician, he's a filmmaker. And it's like, and I'm not trying to say that we're cooler than everyone else, but I'm just saying, you don't get to just go buy a guitar and learn how to use it if you want to make a film. Like, you have to assemble 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 people, and they have to all be in alignment. And that's one of the most special things about filmmaking is pulling that team together and unifying. And so yeah, absolutely props to everybody here. So I'm sure we're going to talk more about post-pro and all that jazz, but that's all we have today for this episode of From the Archives. Appreciate you guys joining us. If you're interested in watching other episodes, we've got a whole slew of them on our website, retrospecfilms.com. And I hope that you tune in the future. We'll keep releasing these things, digging through projects, the problems that we solve, and all the cool stuff that we get to create here at Retrospec Films. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
See ya.
Later.